Now, as a financial planner, I speak to people day in, day out about their retirement. Most of them know when they want to retire, but very few of them know how much they actually need to be able to do that. So in this video, I'm going to talk you through how to work out what your number is. This is going to be based on a variety of different factors, such as your lifestyle expenses, any other income you've got, and ultimately the pot size you need in order to achieve that. At the end, I'll also talk through the other thing that everyone worries about, which is how much do you actually need to be saving each month to achieve that target. But if you're new here, my name's Ben, I'm a chartered financial planner, and my aim is to help as many people as possible gain clarity and confidence around their financial plan. Now, the first place that most people go wrong is they think about what pot size they need rather than the actual level of income they need. So this is the first thing you want to do, is work out what your expenses are likely to be in retirement. Now, for most people, hopefully you've paid your mortgage off by this point, so that's one expense you can write off. But above and beyond that, what other expenses have you got? Now, a good thing to do here is work out different levels of lifestyle. And what I mean by this is to categorize your lifestyle into 3 different points: basics, comfortable, and luxury. Now, by doing this, you can start to work out how much you need versus how much you want. Now, if we go through those one at a time, when I talk about your basics, that is your basics. So that is any mortgage, if you've still got one outstanding, any household bills, and basic food and travel expenses. Now, for someone that's single, this is probably going to be in the ballpark of 20 to 25 grand a year. For a couple, that's probably going to be closer to 30 or 35 grand a year. Next, we move up to a comfortable lifestyle. Now, what I mean by this is you can afford more things like holidays, eating out, and maybe replacing the car every 5 years or so. Now, if you're single, this is going to be in a region of 30 to 40 grand a year. However, for couples, this is going to be somewhere between 40 to 55,000 pound a year. And comfortable is where most of my clients aim to be, where they're living beyond the kind of basics of day-to-day life, but are not going above and beyond and splurging and spending money on luxuries. And finally, you've got the ideal or best lifestyle. Now, with this, you are almost living a kind of no expenses spared sort of life. So we're talking things like replacing the car every couple of years, you're eating out maybe 2 or 3 times a week, you're maybe taking a few more longer haul trips, that sort of thing. Now, again, if you look at numbers, for single people, that's going to be somewhere between 45 to 60 grand a year. And for couples, it's probably going to be closer to 60 or 80 grand a year. Now, if we move on to step 2, now we can translate the expenses into the actual income target. Now, some people might think, well, surely if my expenses are 30 grand a year, then my income target's 30 grand a year, right? Wrong. The reason is because there are so many different factors and income styles that make up your income retirement. So the first thing to think about is the state pension. Now, for most people, this is going to be about £12,000 a year, and it's going to kick in from the age of 67 or 68. Now, if we look at the numbers for the basic lifestyle, going back to that, for a couple, this was around 30 to 35,000 pound a year. Now, if both of you have got your full state pension entitlement, that's going to be 2 lots of 12,000, 24,000. Therefore, you're going to need to fund your other expenses to the tune of between 6 and 11,000 pound a year. Now, clearly, the one thing that we've not discussed yet is the fact that a state pension only comes into payment from age 67 or 68. So if you're looking at retiring around the age of 60, there's going to be a 7 or 8 year gap there where you're going to be fully dependent on your other income to be able to fund your expenses. So now you've worked out roughly how much extra money you're going to need on top of the state pension, we can now start to look at the pot size that you might need. Now, the first place to start is with what we call a safe withdrawal rate. Now, this effectively means how much as a percentage can you draw from your pot each year in order to ensure that that's sustainable throughout your life. Now, a very conservative way of looking at this is somewhere between 3.5% to 4% of the pot size each year. So that means for every £10,000 of income you need, you're going to need a pot size of somewhere between £250,000 to £285,000. So if we now look at the pot size required in relation to the income required for a basic level of income in retirement, for a single person, we said that was somewhere between 20 to 25 grand a year. So then if we convert that into the pot size required, you're looking at somewhere around £500,000 to £700,000. Now again, the 3.5% to 4% rule is very conservative. For some people, depending on the risk you're taking with your pension, you probably can go a bit higher, maybe even as high as 5%. but this would then run the risk of you running out of money at some point during your life. Okay, so now that I've probably scared you all by saying exactly how much money you're going to need, let's look at the options for trying to close that gap and ensure you've got sufficient money there when you need it. So the first thing you want to do is look at where you are today and how much you already have saved. So what you want to do is look at all your pensions you've got, any kind of ISAs or other investments you've got, to work out what that pot value is as it stands today. Now, let's say, for example, you've got £200,000 saved now, and you're looking at a position where I've just told you that for a single person, you're going to need somewhere between 5 and 700 grand saved in retirement. And that's just to cover the basic level expenses. So that gap is probably going to seem quite overwhelming and quite intimidating. So what we want to do is break that down into the monthly contributions required in order to hit that target. So what I'm going to do now on screen is show you a different range of monthly contributions and what pot size that could end up being over the space of the next 20 years. So hopefully, by breaking it down into monthly contributions rather than looking at a massive lump sum amount, that should hopefully help you feel a bit more at ease about what's required to hit that number. Now, as with most things, when it comes to progress, consistency is going to be your best friend. So what I mean by this is there's no point making a massive contribution one month and then nothing for the rest of the year. You want to try and automate your finances so that any contributions you're making outside of your workplace contributions are going out each month automatically. That removes any sort of brain stress or brain power being taken up by having to actually go in and make that contribution. The other thing you might want to look at doing is each time you get a pay rise, sacrifice a percentage of that into your pensions or your investments. Now, it probably doesn't sound like a lot, because if you're getting a 2 to 3% pay rise each year, adding a bit more to your pension doesn't sound like a huge amount, but actually it can make a massive difference over a long enough time frame. So to recap what we've discussed, step 1 is to work out what level of lifestyle you want: basics, comfort, or ideal. From there, you can then work out how much income you need above and beyond your state pension and any other income that you might have. That can then lead to working out the pot size you need and how much you need to contribute each month to get to that point. Now, ultimately, anyone can make this work with the right structure. The important thing is about being patient, doing the right thing consistently, and the end result will come. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you got some value from it. If you did, please subscribe to the channel, because I will be posting more videos like this in the future. And hopefully I'll see you in the next video.